John, it's wonderful to meet you, sir. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Oh, so great to talk to you, Joe.
Great to be here. So let me ask you this first and foremost. I've been trying to put this question to rest, but it's just so ever present. 5 years ago, this pandemic was raging, changed all of our lives. How did you get through it, and how has it reverberated into your life in 2025?
I love the starting point for the question. So I had been building a wealth management business with a number of partners. We had offices in 3 states. And at the end of 2020, we had the pandemic started. I was doing 25 Zoom meetings a week. It was crazy.
Yeah.
We had one of our adopted kids was ready to come home from a residential treatment where she'd been for a few years, and we'd hit my business goal. And so at the end of 2020, I punched out and sold my interest in my business to my partners. And then in 21, we became COVID RVers and took the epic RV trip across the country.
Wow.
And yeah, so that was cool. And I needed a break. Been driving pretty hard, and so I kind of took a sabbatical year in 2021. And then I ran into this thing called C12, and C12 is a peer advisory group for Christian CEOs. And I'd been a part-time pastor and business guy all my career, and so it was just this kind of perfect Venn diagram, if you will, of business and ministry. And so I launched C12 in Kalamazoo, Michigan, in early 22. So since then, I've been working about part-time, helping people build great businesses for a greater purpose, and finished up a book. So yeah, it's been a really fruitful period, frankly.
Yeah.
Combination of rest and new work.
Well, sometimes you need that bump in the road, that existential fork to realize what your real meaning is, what your purpose is. I remember I didn't really start reading until my early 20s when I got into college. And I started reading John Steinbeck, and Grapes of Wrath was the first one. That was kind of my breakthrough moment. I mean, I read kind of the allotted literature from high school, but I always remember Travels with Charlie. Have you read that?
I did not read Travels with Charlie, but I've been exposed to the story or excerpts or something like
Yeah.
that. But I read Grapes of Wrath and the Jodes and all that. Yeah.
Exactly. So Travels with Charlie, he basically gets in the 50s, he gets an RV and loads it up with his dog and he just goes and goes through America. And I always think
Yeah.
about anytime I hear about someone that gets an RV, it weaves together that romantic notion, that Norman Rockwell painting of
Mhm.
just getting out there because the country's so big, there's so many different flavors. It's amazing. What was one of the most unexpectedly cool places that you stopped at on your travels?
In June of 22, we camped on the slopes of Mount Rainier. And that was the first time I'd been out in the Pacific Northwest, and took a little hike up on it was late June, and we're hiking on snow at 7 or 8,000 feet. And I just said, "Oh my gosh, where has this been all my life?" And
Yeah.
so every year since then, I've had a mountaineering objective. I've got to the top of Mount Adams and Broken Top in Oregon. Just last week, I got to the top of Mount Hood. So I'm a flatlander from Michigan in my 50s, and I've started a new thing of mountaineering. It's
But
crazy.
but that's the thing. I always talk to people that live next to the mountains. I'm like, does it ever lose its luster? And they're like, no, it's awesome. Because when you go there, when you come, I mean, from Kansas City and from Michigan, where you don't have like the contour, you look at it and you're just like, I can't get over it. Like I just can't. It never ceases. Like even especially like we love Colorado, driving through, and just every time you see all of this, you're just snapping all these pictures that you're probably never going to look at again or use. But it's like, look at this. It's wild.
It
So
really something about it. It just inspires us. We love those boundaries places, the beach where the water and the land meet. We love the where the mountain and the sky meets. There's something about those boundaries that help us to look farther out. We look, we it expands our vision literally by not having any walls in front of us to see
absolutely.
farther.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If we broke down exactly what you do on a daily basis, kids always get the truth out of us. I'm going to put you in front of 12-year-olds. It's career day. The curious kid in the back of the room is like, hey, what do you do for a living? What's your answer?
at its most basic, what I try to do every day, Joe, is help people think better. That's my motto is better thinking every day. So our outcomes are a result of our behavior, and our behavior is all rooted in our thinking. And most of us are, we're kind of trapped in a circumscribed set of thinking. Sometimes there's limiting beliefs, sometimes there's negative self-talk and all this kind of stuff. But sometimes it's just habits of how do we approach problems and whatnot. And so I work with business leaders, I work with all kinds of people. I drink a lot of coffee, have a lot of coffee meetings with people, trying to help them think through how to be better at their job, they're better at their work, better as a parent, as a spouse. And and so some of those things I get paid for in formal coaching relationships. Some of them I'm writing or creating video that helps people to think better. But really, that's it, Joe, is how to help people think better every day.
So take me back to when you were 12 years old. What was your dream job? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I thought I wanted to be a like a not a park ranger, but like a conservation officer,
Yeah.
And then probably when I was a freshman in high school, I did a day long job shadow. And I was like, well, this is the most boring job in the world. I could never do this. So, sometimes when you're 12, you don't have it all dialed in.
So I remember a comedy skit way back when Dennis Miller used to do stand up, and he was really funny when he did it. He had a joke where he was like, "Where does the park ranger go to get away from it all?"
Yeah, right.
you know? And I was just that it was that tiny quip that worked. So take me back to your childhood. What were these foundational elements that have ultimately evolved into your faith, your spirituality, your being an entrepreneur, your acumen for success? And you're obviously your thirst for adventure. How did all of these seeds get planted and grow into who you are today?
Yeah, it's it's interesting to try to trace everything back, and I'll just say my parents were great. They're both still alive. They still ride their bikes every week, multiple times a week with groups, and they're in their late 70s. And so I've just had exposure to, being outdoors, camping. My dad was a school teacher, but he also was always running some side gig.
Yeah.
When I was a little guy, I remember him painting houses in the summertime. Then he started an insurance agency, and that thing stuck. And so there was always this idea, even if he didn't verbalize it, but just by observation, hey, you can serve people and make money. Um, Look for opportunities to help. Find a problem. In the movie Robots, there's Mr. Bigweld. He's the one of the Disney characters, and he says, "See a need, fill a need."
Yeah.
And really, that's the key to really happiness and success is finding something that other people need, and and if you can fill that need, do it. And it turns out this is a biblical principle. Jesus said, "Give, and it shall be given to you." And so
Yeah.
the value creation cycle starts with giving. And so we give by finding a need and then seeking a way to fill it.
The best thing that anybody that was an entrepreneur told me is finding a problem that needs to be solved. That's the best backbone. Not going in thinking you're going to make $1 billion, like all the other reasons that kind of suffuse this from a selfish standpoint, but purely solving a problem. Like I was thinking the other day, and I haven't said this to anybody. You're the first person. I was riding my bike. There's a trail I ride on, and I just had a trash dumpster put in my driveway, and I had put two grills in it because grills fall apart. They
Yeah.
just do. Even if you cover them up, they fall apart. So I was going by, and there was a dude that had two in the back of his fence. And I'm thinking, what if someone came up with a way that you could take those to a scrapyard where they can melt that metal down and they would have designs for you to make your own that wouldn't be expensive. So it would be, as an entrepreneur, you wouldn't have to really pay. People would just give it to you because they don't want to pay for trash to get it. And then your business model is all about making that into something that people would dig. So you can make it into a, I don't know, maybe something shaped like a guitar, something that's shaped like, you know what I'm saying? It would be kind
Yeah.
of cool.
Well, I've got a great example of that. There's a family in northern Michigan that had a dairy farm, and adult cows that are producing milk. They eat a ton of food.
Yep.
They drink a ton of water. They make like 100 pounds of milk and about 100 pounds of manure every day.
Yeah.
If you've got 1,000 cows making 100 pounds of manure a day, it was actually a big problem for them. They were paying tens of thousands of dollars a month to have manure removed from their farm.
Wow.
They realized, okay, this is a problem for us, but it's a problem for every other dairy farmer. And they developed a way to compost the manure into essentially like potting soil and
Yes.
soil amendments and things like that. They now have 7 processing plants
Wow.
where, and it's called Dairy Do.
Yep.
So it's from dairy farms, and they've completely sold all their cows, and all they do is run this where they're getting paid. They're getting paid to take their raw
That
materials,
that's it. That's what I'm saying.
converting it into something useful. They employ hundreds of people
Yeah.
and improve the soil all over the region.
They fixed their problem, and it's awesome. I've thought about that with rain. And I have, because I've had above ground pools for 10, 15 years now. If there's a way that you could harness some kind of system to get all that rain on your house to go into your pool,
Yeah.
you're filling it up all the time,
Yeah, right.
because it's always evaporating. You're always filling your pool up every summer. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's the
Well,
so
that's the secret to really, to me, that's a secret to success, is finding out what am I uniquely skilled at or have resources or ideas around, and then where does that match up with
yeah,
other people's needs. And man, that creates a great life. It's incredibly satisfying to
yeah,
to make people happy, to hear the thank yous. I mean, that's a big part of our compensation. Hey,
yeah.
thanks, I appreciate it.
My one of my favorite characters of all time when I was a kid was the dad from Gremlins. Remember, he had all the inventions and everything
I
all the
don't.
time.
I remember the movie, and I know you're not supposed to feed them after midnight or something like this, but I don't remember the dad.
Yeah, his dad had all these weird inventions. Like he just had these weird hats that did things and a big like egg thing. There was like a juice machine, but everything fell apart. It would work 90% of the time, and then at the very end, it would capsize. So let me ask you this. Who's been that hero, that inspirational bedrock throughout your life that's allowed you to find your voice and what you need to be doing?
Well, I'll tell you, since probably for the last 20 years or so, one of the biggest influences on me has been a philosopher out of the University of Southern California named Dallas Willard. So
Okay.
he's deceased now. He died in 2013, I think. But not everybody can read him. I mean, he's a philosopher. And one of the things that he said a lot was, philosophers can go down deeper, stay down longer, and come up drier than anybody else. And so it's not super accessible, but he's written a lot of books. And I think there's 1,100 teaching recordings of him. But he just really had a way of helping people realize that God made the universe, and what he calls the kingdom of God is intended for us to have access to all the resources that we could need. And that has really revolutionized my thinking about possibilities. And and if I don't think that I'm resource constrained and that I've got to protect myself, then I'm much more open and available to helping other people.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story where I realized I was not connected to the kingdom. I'm I'm in a coffee shop. And if you're in a coffee shop, you need coffee, right? So you're under caffeinated. So for that, to me, that's a mitigating circumstance for the story I'm about to tell. But there are people in front of me who aren't quite sure what they want. But when they do figure it out, it's some super complicated drink with all these substitutions and stuff. It just takes them a really long time to order. And I'm back here just waiting for my black coffee, man. I want it. I need my coffee. I need it now. And I realized that in my mind, the people in the coffee shop had ceased to be people, but had become objects.
Yeah.
In other words, the people in line, they were obstacles between me and what I thought I needed, the coffee. And then the baristas, the people working back there, they were no longer people. They were tools in
Yeah.
my mind to get me what I wanted. I want my coffee. And and that just that recognition shocked me. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I need to change my defaults. I need a default that that isn't about I need and you need to get out of my way or get me my thing. But I need a default that says, you know what, I'm actually connected to everything that I need and I'm perfectly safe and in a good place." And so I just said, I need to have something that I can switch my thinking over to anytime I start to feel like that. And so for me, it happens to be the 23rd Psalm. But when I notice anxiety, irritation, people have become objects instead of people in my mind. Hey, I've got to switch over,
Yeah.
and I recite that psalm, and it reconnects me to what Dallas called the kingdom of God,
Yeah.
and that's a key to our thinking, Joe, that I think is a really helpful tool is to be conscious of what we're thinking and then have a better default setting to change our default.
Yeah, I love listening. I just listened to an audiobook with Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama.
Ah,
Just the higher vibration thought of what we're here for and how we're all interconnected. Like even I was listening to a book by Jane Goodall. Things have gotten increasingly darker in this country and scarier. And I'm trying to like I read Fred Rogers at the beginning of the year, the biography
nice.
on him and
Yeah.
Jane and just there's a level of human out there that's just akin to what you're talking about, where there is this interconnectedness and it strips away the fact that we pass and see people that we'll never really meet and engage with, but we're all doing the same things. We all have heartbeats and souls and lives and lineages and families, and we all are, just like you said, in this magnanimous way interconnected. And the beauty of this, like with the people in front of you, like my wife and stepdaughter go crazy getting these immaculate concoctions of drinks. That's totally fine. I'm not going to do it. I'm black coffee like you. Put a little sugar in it. Let's go. Let's fire away. But that's the beauty of life is all of these different varieties. I mean, all of the books and all of the media we consume, we wouldn't have the stories and the rich tapestry of human story if we didn't have all these differences. But like you said, that's the point is that we all are interconnected
Mm.
and it's better to understand and to feel like that. It just increases our compassion and empathy as humans.
Well, yeah, that's right. And some of those constrained think thoughts that people have are, if I don't get what I need from Joe, then I'm gonna suffer.
Right.
And is like that's the exact wrong way. I need to give to Joe, and then I will start that value cycle,
Yeah.
right? And I'll receive. So, but when we're disconnected from the source, then we really we get it all the way wrong. And so that's what I'm back to your earlier question. I'm trying to help people think differently,
Yeah.
and so we're not coming out of that constrained, limited world where with a tight fist, but rather open-handed. And the results are awesome. It's amazing
Yeah.
when we
So
do can do that.
yeah, for sure. So I'm curious. It's a two-part question here. We already talked about sports. Obviously, you're a sports fan. I want to know what's the best game, energy-wise, overall that you've ever witnessed in your life. And if you could go to one game in a time machine, where would you go?
Well, I'm in Michigan, and the game between Michigan and Ohio State
Yeah.
is always top shelf. Michigan struggled for a few years there. I think we lost 6 games in a row to Ohio State. But even when we were losing, those games just bring out extra from players, coaches,
Oh yeah.
fans on both sides. They're incredible games. I don't actually like going to the stadium
Yeah.
because the way that you get 110,000 people into a stadium is you give them all 8 inches. It's much more pleasant to sit at home, eat
Yes,
my
it
own
is.
popcorn, drink my own sparkling water. It's like it's a lot more pleasant experience. Um, but one other, I was a kid when Pele retired, and
Oh
he had
wow.
played for the Brazilian national team, and then the New York, I think they were called the Cosmos back then.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Uh-huh.
that soccer team, and I watched the game, and he played the first half for Brazil, and the second half he switched
That's
jerseys
right.
and played on the other team, and I would have loved to be there. He was just such a great ambassador for sport, cross cultural and
Yeah.
And he's a great smile. He had that bicycle kick. It was
That's
so
it.
beautiful.
There was an
Yeah.
iconic black and white that's going into my brain that I remember, and it was like no one did it better than him. He could just
Oh yeah, it was
put it out
awesome.
there. Yeah. So, of everything that you've done and accomplished, and have more importantly evolved to, what are you the proudest of?
I'm the proudest of building a life with my wife, Julie.
Yeah.
Yeah. We both had divorces before we got married. We've been married 24 and a half years, and we've just been super intentional. The odds are against you on the second time around and that kind of thing, but we have just been super committed to each other and um, to building a life. It's more, we think about it more as how am I contributing to this ecosystem of a family rather than what can I get out of it.
Yeah.
And that has completely flipped the script for us. And I mentioned we'd adopted a couple of kids, and that adds a bunch of stress to a family. If you're in a position to be adopted, it means stuff hasn't gone well for you.
Yeah.
And kids with adoption often come with a pretty intense trauma history. And even when the parenting was really stressful and intense, we used that pressure as a way to come together rather than letting it drive us apart. And so, yeah, so that's I'd say that's my number one thing.
So, John, if anyone wants to hire you, they want to get your books, they want to reach out, any other good business in your world, where's the best place to go?
Our website is abundantthoughtrevolution.com. And I have a book coming out at the end of 2025 called Thinking for Success.
Okay.
And you can get a free chapter. I'm happy to give your viewers and listeners a free chapter from the book. It's 52 stories that upgrade your thinking to boost productivity, problem solving, and relationships. And it's really designed to be used in team settings, small groups, staff meeting, executive team. Quick story with a moral of the story and then a title so that once we've processed it together, whenever we see behavior or think that could be better, we can refer to the appropriate story. And it really is much more effective teaching method than just giving somebody a principle.
Yeah.
Don't be a jerk. Okay,
Right.
well, how about let's not fight in front of the kids. Remember, I had the car, John had the car with overinflated tires and whatever, right? So there's a
Yeah.
story there. And the stories are cool because, if I say, hey, a priest and a rabbi walk into a brothel, you want to know what happens, right? And so it engages our narrative. But so abundantthoughtrevolution.com is the source for all that stuff.
Okay, excellent. This has been wonderful, John. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.